What if I told you that some of the most expensive real estate on Earth isn't really land at all? That beneath those postcard-perfect villas shaped like palm trees, the ground itself is quietly shifting, sinking, and fighting to return to the sea. For years, Dubai sold the world a vision that felt almost supernatural, a place where money didn't just buy luxury, it rewrote geography. Entire continents redrawn in sand, islands sculpted into symbols visible from space. A promise that nature could be engineered, controlled, perfected. But what happens when nature starts answering back? Because something strange is happening out there in the Persian Gulf. From above, everything still looks flawless. Symmetrical palms, elegant crescents, a world map frozen in golden sand. But zoom in, and the illusion begins to crack. Shorelines blur. On waters grow still and murky. Entire islands sit untouched, like abandoned movie sets waiting for actors who never arrived. And the question quietly emerges: was this ever sustainable, or was it always a gamble disguised as genius? At first, it felt like a miracle. The early 2000s turned Dubai into a global spectacle, a place where each shipment of dredged sand felt like a step toward something historic. Palm Jumeirah became the crown jewel, a symbol that humans could quite literally build paradise. Celebrities rushed in, headlines exploded, and ownership became a statement, proof that you had arrived. But even then, beneath the surface, the clock had already started ticking, because sand, no matter how expensive, is still sand. It shifts, it compacts, it responds to forces that no marketing campaign can control. Over time, and that perfect foundation begins to settle, millimeter by millimeter. Not enough to alarm anyone in a single year, but enough to raise an uncomfortable question over decades. How do you preserve something that was never meant to exist in the first place? And then there's the water. The very element meant to enhance the beauty of these islands is slowly turning against them. The protective crescent that shields the palm from waves also traps the sea itself, reducing circulation, raising temperatures, and transforming once clear waters into something heavier, less alive. It's an unintended consequence, the kind that doesn't show up in glossy brochures, but quietly reshapes reality over time. But if Palm Jumeirah is the success story with cracks beneath the surface, the rest of the vision feels even more unsettling. Because just beyond it lies something far more revealing: silence. The world islands, once marketed as the ultimate playground for the elite, now sit largely untouched. Dozens of islands, sold for millions, remain nothing more than shaped sand, slowly eroding under the same tides they were meant to conquer. And here's where the illusion begins to unravel completely. Owning an island sounds like the ultimate symbol of wealth, until you realize you're responsible for everything. Power, water, waste, logistics. None of it arrives automatically. Each piece must be built from scratch, often at costs that rival the land itself. What was sold as exclusivity starts to feel more like isolation. What looked like opportunity begins to resemble a trap. Even the boldest projects couldn't escape this reality. Palm Jebel Ali, not envisioned as something even grander, now stands as a haunting reminder of overreach. Roads that lead nowhere, infrastructure frozen mid-construction. A vision paused indefinitely, like a sentence that was never finished. And the reason isn't hard to find. Timing, location, and economics collided in the worst possible way, turning ambition into abandonment almost overnight. Then came the moment that changed everything. When global markets faltered, the illusion of endless funding collapsed with them. Projects that depended on constant cash flow suddenly found themselves exposed. Without money moving in, everything stopped. Construction halted, investors disappeared, and the dream, so dependent on momentum, began to fade faster than anyone expected. But perhaps the most overlooked part of this story isn't financial, it's environmental. Because reshaping coastlines doesn't just affect land, it disrupts entire ecosystems. Coral reefs disappear, marine life migrates or vanishes. Natural sediment flows are interrupted, triggering erosion in places that were once stable. It's a chain reaction, one that doesn't reverse easily, no matter how much money is thrown at it. And still, the ambition hasn't slowed. New ideas continue to emerge, even more extravagant than before. Projects designed to outshine the last, to push the boundaries further, to keep the narrative alive. But there's an underlying tension now, a sense that each new announcement is not just about growth, but about maintaining belief. Because belief is what holds everything together. The belief that demand will always be there. that investors will keep coming, that nature can be managed, controlled, negotiated with. But history has a way of testing those assumptions, often when it's least convenient. Standing back and looking at the bigger picture, it starts to feel less like a triumph and more like a question, not just about Dubai, but about a mindset. What happens when ambition outruns reality? When spectacle replaces sustainability? When the desire to build something unforgettable ignores the cost of maintaining it? Maybe that's the real story here. Not the islands themselves, but what they represent. A world where limits feel optional, until they aren't. Where success can look solid from a distance, but up close reveals something far more fragile. Because mega projects like these don't just need money. They need unwavering belief. They rely on the assumption that demand will always grow, that luxury will always attract, and that the next buyer will always arrive. But what happens when buyers start hesitating? When they begin to ask not just how much, but how long will this last? And beneath all of this lies a deeper, quieter issue. One that doesn't make headlines but shapes everything over time. The environment itself. Moving hundreds of millions of cubic meters of sand doesn't just create islands, it erases ecosystems. Coral reefs disappear. Marine life loses its habitat. Natural coastal dynamics are disrupted in ways that ripple far beyond the construction zone. And as the tides continue their quiet, relentless work, one thought becomes harder to ignore. You can shape the sand. You can design the skyline. You can even redraw the map. But in the end, the forces beneath it all don't follow human plans. They never did. And when you step back from everything we've uncovered, it starts to feel less like a story about islands and more like a warning written in sand. Because what looks permanent today can slowly disappear tomorrow, often without noise, without headlines, just quiet shifts beneath the surface until the illusion can no longer hold. That's what makes this so unsettling. Not the scale of the ambition, but how convincing it all seemed while it was happening. The idea that with enough money, enough vision, even nature itself could be negotiated with. And for a while it worked, or at least it looked like it did. Standing back, the entire coastline begins to feel like a paradox. On one hand, it's a testament to what humans can achieve with enough resources and determination. On the other, it's a reminder that not all achievements are permanent. And some require constant effort just to exist, and others quietly decay, no matter how impressive they once seemed. But now, the cracks are visible. Not dramatic enough to cause panic overnight, but real enough to make you question everything that came before. So the real question isn't just about Dubai. It's about how many other perfect systems around the world are built on the same fragile foundation. If this story made you think differently, even for a moment, let me know. I'm genuinely curious what your take is. Was this inevitable, or could it have been done differently? And if you're interested in more deep dives like this, stories that look beyond the surface and uncover what's really holding things together, consider subscribing. There's a lot more beneath the surface, and not all of it is as stable as it seems.